Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Feed My Sheep, Earthquake Reports and more. I'm Terry Rempel. It's the 14th of January, and it's good to be back. We've got some very good information regarding California in today's program, and there's a lot to show you. Before we begin, all of our programs are dedicated to our Heavenly Father service, and we'll begin with a prayer. Heavenly Father, we come before you humbly and with gratefulness for all that you do for us. We ask that you take the glory for this program. This is your program. We thank you for continuing to provide it for all your children and all who are drawn here. We thank you for the very many things that you are accomplishing in these times. And there's a great shaking going on in very, very many ways. We thank you for your hand being over all of it, that you protect all your children. We ask that you take all the glory for this program. We thank you, Jesus, for leading us to good information and understandings of many, many things. And Holy Spirit, we thank you for the many gifts you bring from Father for filling our needs, for the still quiet voice that you are inside of us as well. In Jesus' name, amen. So we're beginning with Calipatria, and we're stepping back in time because we haven't looked at anything since, I think, about the 3rd or 4th that we were last bringing you California information. So a quick look at Calipatria on the 8th, and so this is south of Salton Sea. A lot of activity there, and that's every day. And this is another side of it. This is Bombay Beach, another site, same location, Salton Sea, but it's further up on the middle eastern side of Salton Sea. So it's a small town there. Used to be larger. Used to be once upon a time a vacation spot. Now it's somewhat of a less populated, eclectic location. Walnut La Puente. I put these two together because the signals are so similar. And Walnut La Puente is an area that I believe is an old caldera. I've been saying for over 3 years now that it's been reactivating as volcano or volcanic signals are originating underneath it. And it's got the shape of an old caldera as well. So if you compare the same organization providing the same signals, you can see the similarity between the known volcano at Salton Sea, known volcanic activity, and Walnut La Puente. Now this is showing the earthquake on the 8th, so we'll ignore that, but we know that it's there. There was a 7.5 that day. It was called smaller than that, but that's what it was. Bombay Beach, we looked at that. Here on the 10th, we're looking at Walnut La Puente, and there was an earthquake on that day, on the 10th, and we reported it as a 9.1, and we can see it across the top of the seismogram up here. Actually, no, that's on the 8th. My mistake. Did I get two of the same? I did get two of the same. Let's just ignore that. I am far less than perfect. San Bernardino on the 9th. So a very active location. So 9th, we had a different earthquake than the 8th. So there's the larger one. And State Street on the 9th, you can just barely see that earthquake is here. It's right in a very busy active period. It just shows a small gap. But State Street on the 9th, that's just north of the Long Beach area. So all the longshoring sites and military beach sites down there. Light hype on the 9th is further north of Long Beach, up at our Artesia Boulevard. So there you have light hype. That's a substation, name of a substation. State Street is further south, down towards Long Beach. It's maybe 5 miles up from the sea, maybe less. And State Street currently, that was on the 9th. This is today. So you can see activity continues high. And this has been going on every day. It drops back to this at times, overnight especially. It's busier during the day and quieter at night. And that's been fairly consistent. San Bernardino. So we're now heading over to the east of LA, quite a ways east. That's today. I did have, San Bernardino on the 9th. So we can see that this is another site that just never really stops. It slows down, and it slows down to this overnight, and then it gets busier during the day. And this is light hype today. So just showing you that it's continuous activity. Here's La Puente, Walnut La Puente on the 12th. So activity really fired up in this area here. It was quite a bit busier than normal, and it's already a very active site. That's West Covina area as well. Pasadena on the 11th. Now this is an art studio, or not studio, it's an education center, Art Center College of Design, I think is what it's called. And it's in Pasadena. And this area has an over amplitude sign and has had for years. So it gets these wavy lines, that's normal. And this up and down motion of them, it's a little over amplitude. So these are not nearly as large as they appear on the seismogram. But this is a very high or a very long period of non-stop tremors. Well, I guess it's got a break in here, so they are stopping. But long series of tremors across here, across this area, and this is just to the west of the Walnut La Puente East Covina area, and so this is very likely fault that is associated with what? Volcanoes are pretty much all have faults, unless some supervolcanoes may not. But certainly this caldera would have a fault associated with it. And following the landmass of the San Bernardino Mountains, you come over to Pasadena, and there's a big fault shift. That's on the 11th. This is on the 12th. And so it lasted for near 12 hours long on the 12th. So that's part of the 11th. And second seismogram of the day. These are 12-hour seismograms. And this is the second 12-hour seismogram. You can see that tremors remained afterwards. So these are the tremor signals. Because this is so over amplitude. Here's an higher intensity vibrational sequence of slow fault shift tremors. But you can see there's some very significant activity. When it's light, it looks like this, and we don't see very much. This site is not generally active. I've never seen it flare up with a fault shift. I'm not saying it has. I'm not saying it has not flared up, but I haven't seen it flare up. And so I checked this one. I went back through a week of data and picked that information up. I've been watching for a spread of activity from the subduction 7.0 earthquake at the Mendocino Ridge and inland in Northern California, and I've been watching it spread south. Been watching the subduction activity, vibrations of subduction, and I've reported on that, and it's gotten down as far as Pismo Beach on the seismograms as of the 5th. And these, the seismograms from Northern California, the seismic network there, they're all frozen on the 5th. So we don't have any new data for there, but we do have data for Southern California, and it seems the shift is now getting to Southern California. So this is Serrano on the 10th. And Serrano is down near Irvine, Anaheim, southeast of Anaheim, just into the mountains of the San Jacinto Mountains on the west side. So that's a fault shift in Serrano, and a good size one. This one is a shorter version of what was going on in Pasadena, and because it's set at the correct amplitude, this is what it should look like. And on the 11th, there was a few hours of tremors that followed. So you can see the VLF waves of fault shift in here and in here, and then lots of high frequency rock fracturing going on with the fault movement, giving us these tremors. So that's a tremor, that's a tremor, 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 and these are VLF fault shifts. And this is a VLF fault shift, so you get them mixed together as well. High frequency and low frequency signals mixed together. The Lone Juniper Ranch south of Bakersfield, just west of the apex of the Mojave. This is at the Garlock Fault on the 9th, and we're looking at a small fault shift here along the Garlock Fault. This is the earthquake that we had on the 9th, the 9.1 in Indonesia, East Timor area. So there were other small shifts around Bakersfield in this time period, in that few days around the 9th and 10th. Now we had a huge jump in activity in the Sierra Nevadas west side, east of Modesto, near Bear Valley. This is how far south it got with huge activity. And that's about as good a picture as I can show you, but these ones don't open up. But they have not updated since the 5th. So we're now into the Central and Northern California seismic network. And I do have some USGS seismograms, and they are showing very significant activity continuing. So that's what we're going to look at. We're going to give you the last days of the information that came from the northern system, and then some of the USGS to follow. And this is what the USGS is telling us. So this is west of Mono Hot Springs, and of course hot springs are volcanic. Sierra Nevadas are developed by subduction, and here we're finding, if this will finish loading, here we are finding a whole bunch of activity well south. It's continuing south down the Sierra Nevadas that we have this activity. I don't know if that one's going to open. There it is. So finally we have a look at this. And very large activity, significant, larger than what is normally there in the south central Sierra Nevadas. We're down most of the way to Fresno now. Now, we have previously shown high levels of volcanic reactivation activity east of Mammoth Mountain, and that's in the East Sierra Nevadas. This is new in type and intensity. This is an increase that's very significant. Hopefully we don't have to wait too long for this to open. I'm going to have to click on it sooner. So we've got a lot of vertical displacement of the baseline now showing. So they've changed the channel and how it shows up as a result. So we're getting the wavy lines. This is very similar to what we get from other volcanic environments like Katmai volcano in Alaska. And others that are on this channel. Baker, Mount Shuksan will look like this or similar to this at times as well, and other locations, Mount St. Helens and even Mount Hood. So we get this type of activity at volcanic locations. Now you can see some steam burst type signals, vertical lines out of this as well. I wouldn't say for certain that these are steam burst. Now we're west of Mammoth by something like 8 miles. And so this is a high intensity increase of magma compared to what there was. It's not saying it's going to suddenly erupt, but it's quite a significant reactivation signal. So volcanic reactivation west of Mammoth Mountain in the central Sierra Nevadas west side. We see more of it here. So that's a few hours of very significant activity and a small earthquake mixed in. Now, comparing to Mammoth, activity at Mammoth Mountain has also increased, but it's quite different. We're going to flash back between these two. Hopefully we get the load happening. Not sure why this is so slow today. I think we're having a sun flare today. That might be affecting our load time. I'm not sure. But here we are. We've got significant small localized earthquakes at the bottom of the seismogram from Mammoth Mountain. This is MCY from Mammoth. And in comparison, there's no activity at the bottom of the previous seismogram. We'll just go back to that for comparison value. You can see here, there's none of that activity. So this activity that's west of Mammoth Mountain is quite independent of Mammoth Mountain. Okay, it's too far away, and it's not connected. So now we're going to head up the west side of the Sierra Nevadas. We're beginning near Columbia. The site near Columbia showed an increase in tremors, but the increase was much more obvious northeast of the town of San Andreas. And so here we are in the western Sierra Nevadas, and that is northeast of San Andreas. And this is southwest of Lake Tahoe. So there's a jump in activity southwest of Lake Tahoe. So now we're going to have a look at what's going on around Tahoe. We've touched on the southernmost activity in the Sierra Nevadas. On the west side, we're going up to Lake Tahoe. This is west-southwest, so that's site number 2. Alpine Village is also very active, but with fault shifts. This is back on the 5th, west of Lake Tahoe. So this is at the Bunker Hill site. North Lake Tahoe, also very active. We see it up on the top here. It's also getting busy down the bottom. Why the agency has turned all of this off since the 5th, I've never seen it turned off for this length of time. It's been off for a few days at times, but now we're well over a week, and the agencies apparently don't want to be showing what's actually going on, or they don't want anybody telling the public. That's what it looks like. It's a very strange thing that none of these sites since the 5th have been sending information. Here we are west-northwest of Lake Tahoe near Cisco Grove. So that's significant activity as well. So we've got a lot of magma infill around Lake Tahoe. We've got fault shift as well. We've got magma infill. And Lake Tahoe was already known to have issues of uplift on the northwest area, significant in the area of Cisco as well. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 different seismograms that are showing activity around Lake Tahoe, and it's a significant increase in activity. And it was higher than this. This has actually dropped off some. If you look back to the previous programs, you'll see they were busier. South of Pyramid Lake, or at least most of them were, south of Pyramid Lake continued to have very large tremors into the 5th. We don't know if those are continuing or not. We don't have an active seismogram in the area. Folsom Lake, northeast of Sacramento. We're back on the west side of the Sierra Nevadas, and we see activity northeast of Sacramento and northeast of Auburn as well. Now, the activity on the west side got down as far as Miramonte, being very, very active, and Bear Valley was one of the most significantly active sites. I seem to have misplaced that seismogram, but regardless, I think I posted it on a previous program. This is Sutter Buttes on the 5th, and this is an awful lot of activity at Sutter Buttes, and this is an active volcano. Has been for years. The professionals are not talking about it. It's got a military installation on top of it, and that's maybe why they want to keep it quiet. I don't know. They don't like to bother people with insurance issues either. Northwest of Paradise on the west side of course, of the Sierra Nevadas, and very active on the 5th. Now, why do we think this is continuing? because that should be the question on your mind. I'm showing you a bunch of data from the 5th. Well, we're going to show you why we believe it is continuing, and at high levels as well. This is near Red Bluff East, and this is on the 5th. Doesn't help much to blow this one up. East-southeast of Redding. So that's a lot of fault fracturing east of Redding to get these large of a strike. And east-northeast of Redding look like this. Mount Diablo is east of San Francisco, northeast of San Jose, north-northeast. And very active small volcano, reactivating volcano there. South of Livermore, east-northeast of Fremont. Okay, another very active site. And this is slowed down from what we were showing you earlier. And now we're going to southeast of Clear Lake Volcano, and this is on trend. It follows the geologic formation of the ridges and valleys and mountains of California. So we're heading southwards, but it's on an angle, southeast of Clear Lake Volcano. Like I say, on trend, and it's at the northeast end of Lake Berryessa. And this is a lot of activity. That's a huge bunch of what is very likely magma moving through with some fracturing as well. You can see the strikes coming vertically through here. That indicates that we're getting some significant fracturing as well. So there's probably some uplift with all of the movement. I don't think that's all fault shift. I think that's got magma involvement, and it's on trend with an active volcano. So it's not an actively erupting volcano, but it is certainly an active volcano. That's why they've got the steam all around, in the geysers area, that they're running geothermal units there. North end of Clear Lake Volcano showing its activity, so localized activity to the Clear Lake Volcano. So that's the north end of the lake. And there's some at the south end as well. So here's the evidence of continued high activity in the Sierra Nevadas. So this is Manton west of Lassen on the 7th. So this is 2 days after they shut off the Northern California seismograms, and they're still accessible, but they're not posting anything since the 5th. So there's a period of higher intensity activity in here, a few hours there. And that's quite significant for Mount Lassen. This is South Mount Lassen on the 10th. And we're seeing a whole bunch of steam release activity in here and down in the bottom here. A lot of steam release. And it's overcoming the seismogram to some degree in here as well. So it's knocking it offline. The activity is too large for it to maintain all the way. We can see steam release through here as well. Steam burst signals. Steam, water flashing into steam at depth. West of Mount Lassen on the 10th. So we're not getting full seismograms from anything from USGS in Northern California right now. At least not from Lassen. We're getting them from Long Valley Caldera and Mammoth and that area. To some degree, we're getting full seismograms, but for Lassen and Mount Shasta, not so much. And we've been short on data from those sites for well over 6 months. So there's a lot of data gaps up in the north end of California. So this is Mount Lassen, west of Mount Lassen, sorry, on the 10th. So it's not at Mount Lassen exactly, but it's west of it. And this is Mount Lassen blowing steam off hard on the 12th. So it's got the notifications for the seismologists to read here in red, in more the center of the seismogram. Hopefully this will load and give you some clarity shortly. So we've got a big data gap in the middle, normal for these seismograms right now. All of these vertical lines, what on a phone looks like fuzzy lines probably, this is all steam release in here. and it's a huge amount of steam being released. So you would see clouds of steam around Mount Lassen if you had the weather for it, if you were on the right side of the mountain. That's a lot. This is the south side of Mount Lassen, and there's more of it down here. So with the activity that was this high going through the center, it probably continued through this center section, but I'm expecting the activity was just too large for this to stay online. It might be that somebody turned it off. I don't know, but I'm not here to worry about that. It's just showing you the activity. And it's very large, and that's on the 12th. So when we've got high levels of activity on the 12th, around Mount Lassen and around Mount Shasta, it indicates that everything else is busy as well, because these are high levels of activity for these sites. Timbered Crater on the 11th, it's so filled in with these steam release signals that it's solid down the bottom. This is all steam release. That's my interpretation of the seismogram. So a huge amount of steam being released, and that's east of Mount Shasta now on the 11th, with much the same activity. A lot of steam being released. There's also magma infill mixed in that, of course, and there's magma infill mixed in with steam signals most of the time. Medicine Lake has the same issue. You can see vertical strikes of steam release in the middle of the seismogram, and it grows in intensity, and it's active down here. Well, that whole general area of Timbered Crater and east of Mount Lassen and Medicine Lake, it's all the same volcanic field, and so the activity is all interrelated, and that's why you're getting the same type of activity across 3 seismograms. Well, it shows you that all the area in between Mount Shasta and Mount Lassen are very, very active, and of course Mount Lassen and Mount Shasta are going to be active right along with it. And if they're that active, and these are so much more active than normal, and this began about 5-6 days after the subduction earthquake, and it's the subduction earthquake that set off all of the intense activity or reactivation activity all around Lake Tahoe and through the Sierra Nevadas, and it's heading south. So here we are east-southeast of Mount Shasta on the 12th, and as I was saying, very significant activity at these sites. We're missing half a day of data again, but at least we've got enough to show you what's going on. And that's a lot of steam being released, and this isn't even at the volcano. This is away from the volcano in the volcanic fields. And here we have Mount Lassen on the 12th. And so we're at the south side of Mount Lassen. And we showed you this a few hours earlier up above. So it's just adding this activity down at the bottom. More steam release that was going on. More magma infill, more steam release. This is Manton on the 12th. And that's west of Mount Lassen, and very active again. There's a big data gap. It's very busy before the data gap. It's very busy after the data gap. It's a good chance that all of this was activity that was very similar to what was before it and what was after. So that's a huge amount of activity west of Mount Lassen. East of Mount Shasta on the 13th, 14th. We don't get much of a look at Shasta from this site, but when we do, it can be very significant. So we've only got maybe an hour of activity showing here, but it's all marked up for the seismologist review because this is all massive steam release signals through here. Medicine Lake Volcano on the 13th, 14th. Again, big data gap in the middle, but in this case it may have been slower because it enters from a slow period to becoming busy, and and we can see a period after this where it kind of seems to tail off. So it may have been a slower period, and this is a fairly turned down seismogram. That's the other thing with these. When they're showing no data at all, there is some data. It's just so small that if I blow it up, I can see it. Sometimes it's turned off. Other times it's just so small that you can't see it. but it's under the value that it should be. So it's turned down from normal. West of Mammoth Mountain, this matters a great deal because this is in the Sierra Nevadas proper. It's not part of Mammoth Mountain. And so we're coming back to this active seismogram showing magma infill through the top and through the middle with an earthquake here and a smaller earthquake tremor, large tremor there. Magma-related activity, and we've got some spikes that may indicate steam at the top. We're not absolutely sure. And why is that significant? Because it doesn't match what's going on at Mammoth, as we showed you earlier. So this is activity in the Sierra Nevadas west of Mammoth, and that's Sierra Nevadas reactivation. What this is showing, all of this is showing, is that subduction 7.0 on the Mendocino Ridge has stimulated a whole bunch of volcanic activity through the Sierra Nevadas. That's a big deal. We're looking at reactivation, a significant step up of reactivation, because the Sierra Nevadas were already reactivating, and now they're reactivating in a greater way. So this is a step forward where the Sierra Nevadas are behaving like the Cascades do in subduction, where new crust has been presented underneath for melting underneath the Sierra Nevadas, and it's causing reactivation. And that's what's happened under the Cascades Range, and that's why the Cascades Range has become so active. The whole length of the Cascades and right up into Alaska through the BC coastal mountains has reactivated, and now we're getting the same effect to a greater degree in the Sierra Nevadas. So it's behaving like the Cascades Range, and the Sierra Nevadas were built. They're stratovolcanoes. They were built by subduction. So it shouldn't be a huge surprise to see them being reactivated by subduction. It's logical. And here's Manton today. And this is turned off through the seismogram here. There's no activity showing on the lines at all, hardly. There's little tiny bits right there. But huge jump in activity here. That's very, very large activity on a turned-down seismogram. And the same with Timbered Crater. This is a turned-down seismogram that's very active. And you can see the steam building through here. These are all basically steam release signals. Huge amount of steam out in the volcanic fields. And east-southeast of Mount Shasta, magma infill. I'm not seeing the amount of steam releases to match up with these red signals. So I'm not sure what's going on there with the computer program, but I'm just seeing a whole bunch of magma infill from that. Now, looking at what's going on with subduction. So this is the Sierra Nevadas through here. If that'll open up. And you'll notice that this is a big bowl in here. This is almost like an oval track. So this is all the low-lying land. We've got mountains on the coast, and we've got the mountain ridge inland. And there's Visalia there. Fresno's about here. So we're reactivated down to about this area here. There's the Long Valley column. There's Mammoth Lakes here. We're a little below Mammoth Lakes and across here. So this is the area that's reactivated of the Sierra Nevadas, and now it's jumped down on the, and it come down a little bit on the west side down to this area here. And now we're getting some reactivation just in this area in the central Sierra Nevadas, a little further south than we were before. Now, this is the Garlock Fault going across here. So you can see kind of a flat line across here. And we had earthquakes and fault shift right in this area here at the apex of the Mojave. So it makes sense that if we've had some fault shift or some plate shift up in this area, in the Mendocino up top here, we'll see it on the other seismogram, that it's going to put pressure on the lower part, this whole area down below, to shift. And the shift is going to occur on the Garlock to some degree. But we've also seen a shift occur south of there in LA, and this is the San Gabriel Mountains that go across here. And so we've got a fault shift right in this area as well. So shifting this way, that's what seems to be occurring. And we've got some further south. There's Anaheim down here. So we've got some down below this as well. I showed a small shift south of there. So volcanic reactivation extending from here, especially around Lake Tahoe, but up from Mono Lake, going up here west of Walker Lake, here south of Pyramid Lake, major reactivation there. We've got volcano here, let's see, San Francisco's here, so we're right in this area here with Mount Diablo. Clear Lake volcanoes here, and we've got the one south of Clear Lake volcano right here, a really active site, more active than Clear Lake volcano itself, at the Berryessa, Lake Berryessa. And then right around Redding and just east of Red Bluff also, there's activity here, but then Mount Lassen is here. It's very active. It's active to the west of Mount Lassen, and then up here at Mount Shasta also. And then all of this area in here has been showing significant signs of activity. More on this side. I guess that's Mount Lassen there, or is that? Oh, I'll need a bigger picture for that one. Anyway, significant volcanic reactivation in California, and this is a big deal. So we've got the process of subduction reactivating the Sierra Nevadas all the way down to here. And really, the Cascadia is only supposed to go as far as Mount Lassen. But now it seems to be extending south of Mono Lake. There's Mono Lake, and that's the Long Valley Caldera here. So that puts us over in this area here. We've got reactivation all the way down just south of Fresno at this point. So that's a big deal. That's a big change. That's a big discovery in geology that we would see that change, and that's history being made. And it poses threats that people have not considered. So if you're going to make adjustments for threats in your area, you have to know what the threats are. And that's what we're trying to bring you. We're trying to bring you the information about where the threats are, and then you can take the correct course of action for your area at the appropriate time. Nothing looks like it's imminently about to erupt, or that we're about to have the Cascadia or anything like that right now. We're not at that phase, but we're at a place where you should be aware of what's going on and track it, so that if things are looking more short-term, that activation is occurring, that you're seeing eruptions, or that you're seeing 8.0 or 7.5 to 8.5 earthquakes over here in San Francisco or LA, you have to think about where you want to be if this all starts erupting through here. Because that's a real risk. In subduction, what creates the volcano, if you reintroduce the process that created the volcanoes in the first place, and they're primed and ready to go, then you're going to get eruptions through the volcanic chain, and it's going to carry on right up through the Cascades into BC, and possibly even include Alaska in this go-round. So we'll see what happens, but the repriming, the reactivation of the volcanoes is underway, and it's been well underway for over 10 years for most of the area of the Cascades. And there was significant tree kill around Mount Shasta, Mount Lassen, going back more than 10 years, and that relates to volcanic activity. All right. So hopefully you are appreciating the information that we're bringing you, and if you are, give us a thumbs up, share us with your friends, or subscribe. And go with what God's blessing. It says in the Bible 365 times, fear not, and that's for a reason. All who are under God's protection have no cause to fear. And if you're going to, the best person to know when is the time to move, if you're going to move, if you're supposed to stay, and you're going to be protected where you are. All of that's in God's hands. It's not in mine. Nobody knows when these very, very large earthquakes are going to occur. But we are very fortunate to see that we have precursor signs for the Cascadia big mega subduction earthquake event. And that is overdue. It is coming at some point. It's far beyond me. I tried to forecast it once and failed miserably. It's in God's hands, and it's certainly beyond my ability to forecast it. That's for certain. But we have some precursor signs. So that's what we're sharing with you. So we'll see you next time on Feed My Sheep, Earthquake Reports, and more. Go with God's blessing, and bye for now.